You ever wake up and realize your whole life's gone up in smoke, and you're left with nothing but your name, a suitcase, and a stack of books you can't bear to throw away? That's how it started for me. Well, for Annie Dalton, when she stepped off that clattering mail wagon in Abilene, Kansas, shoes caked in dust, not a friend in the world. You know what I mean? The kind of starting over that doesn't feel brave, just necessary. I used to be a teacher, proud of it too, until a fire back in Ohio burned everything I'd built right to the ground. Folks said I should be grateful just to find work anywhere, and maybe they were right. But I never pictured myself taking a job as a housekeeper on a stranger's ranch, let alone one as lonely as the Ridge place. The ad said, housekeeper wanted. Room, board, and honest pay. Must endure the winter. I'd lost my school, my home, and most of my self-respect. Seemed like I was well qualified to endure pretty much anything at that point. So I wrote back, signed it, A. Dalton, and got a one-way ride out west. I don't know what Clayton Ridge expected, a sturdy widow, maybe, or some grizzled farm wife with more apron than attitude. What he got was a schoolteacher with a backbone stiff as the Kansas wind, who quoted Shakespeare while scrubbing floors and organized his pantry like it was a library. I'll never forget my first glimpse of that ranch, stretching out across the prairie, endless and lonely as a broken heart. Clayton was standing on the porch, tall, broad-shouldered, hat pulled low, hands gripping the rail like he was bracing for a storm. There was this heavy silence about him, like grief that wouldn't quite let go. He'd lost his father to fever 2 years before, and if you looked close, you could still see that hollow space in his eyes. His family's brass compass sat on the kitchen table, a relic, he told me, that had kept 3 generations of Ridgemen from getting lost. He said, maybe it'll point me toward what I actually need. And I could tell he wasn't just talking about directions. My introduction was all business. I'm Annie Dalton. I believe you're in need of a housekeeper. He nodded, polite but wary, and led me inside to a house aching with the absence of a woman's touch. Rooms off the kitchen. It's small, but it's yours if you want it. Truth was, I'd have slept in the barn if he'd asked. That first night, I lay awake listening to the wind and thought, well, Annie, you're not in Ohio anymore. That it didn't take long to see that Clayton ran the ranch by routine and brute force, but he had no idea how to run a household. Meals were an afterthought. Cleaning was whatever the hired hands' wives could spare, and the parlor looked like a museum to better days. I got to work, quietly, moving through rooms like a ghost, dusting away years of neglect, making lists in my head. What needed mending? What could be saved? Clayton watched me the way you'd watch a storm rolling in, not sure if you should run or take shelter. You want a twist? Here it is. By the second week, I'd found a rhythm, and so had he. He started lingering in the kitchen, pretending to check supplies while really just watching. We never said much, but sometimes it felt like the silence was a conversation all its own. It wasn't long before the ranch hands, Pete, Jake, and Tom, began eating in instead of out, lured by actual meals and the promise of clean plates. Pete, who'd ridden more cattle drives than I'd had birthdays, studied me with the cautious respect of a man who'd seen too many changes. Jake, not much more than a boy, looked at me like I was a curiosity, and Tom, quiet as a stone, just nodded and did his work. One Thursday evening, Clayton came home late and found all 3 men sitting around the kitchen table, chalk in hand, slates open, while I taught them their letters by lantern light. You running a school now, Miss Dalton? He asked, but there was a softness in his voice. Just making use of idle hands, I replied, though the truth was, teaching had always been more than a job. It was who I was. The men surprised me. Pete recited lines from the Bible, slow but steady. Jake labored over his name like it was a puzzle. Tom wanted to write a letter to his girl, and I'll never forget the pride in his eyes when he managed it. No matter how crooked the lines, that's when Clayton started asking questions. Not just about the house or the ranch, but about me. I told him what I could. I taught in a small town, lost everything in a fire, came west for a new start. I didn't tell him about the whispers back in Ohio, the folks who thought I'd had something to do with the fire, The parents who crossed the street rather than meet my eye. Some truths, I figured, were better left in the ashes. Still, secrets have a way of rising, just like smoke. One night, he found my teaching certificate, water-stained, but still legible, and pieced things together. "You were a teacher," he said, not a question. I nodded. "Was and am at heart. Just don't have a classroom anymore." He told me then that he didn't want just a housekeeper. He wanted me to keep teaching, maybe start something on the ranch for the local kids, too. I tried to explain, tried to tell him that I couldn't, that the past would catch up with me. He said, "You don't have to face it alone." You ever have someone believe in you so fiercely it scares you? That was Clayton. He saw past the rumors and the broken pieces, saw someone worth saving. It wasn't long before I found myself wishing for more than just a job. I wanted a home, maybe even a future. But just as we started talking about building a school and making something new together, the past came knocking. Twist number 2. A federal marshal rode into town with a wanted poster, my name and face printed right there. Anna Dalton, wanted for questioning in connection with the Millbrook school fire. They said I'd said it, on purpose, for reasons they never could quite pin down. I remember standing on the porch as that marshal read the charges, every eye in the room on me, even Clayton's. For a moment, I saw doubt flicker in his face, the same doubt I'd seen in Ohio, the doubt that could bury a person faster than dirt. I wanted to run. For 2 years, running had been my only plan. But this time, Clayton stood beside me. "She's not guilty," he said. Dr. Harrison, the town doctor who'd seen me bind wounds and teach grown men to read, vouched for my character. Pete, Jake, Tom, they all stood up, too. For once, I wasn't alone. While Dr. Harrison sent for help from a friend in Ohio, a man who could dig up the truth, I sat in my tiny room, packing my bag, my heart breaking at the thought of losing everything again. But hope's a stubborn thing. In just 3 days, the telegram came back. Blackwood and Crane, the banker and mill owner who'd wanted the school's land for themselves, had been indicted for arson. Witnesses came forward. My name was cleared. The letter said, "Miss Dalton is innocent. Her only crime was trying to save her students." Redemption's a strange thing. It's not like you wake up and suddenly everything's fine. The people who doubted you still whisper, but their words don't land the way they used to. For the first time since Ohio, I felt light, unburdened. Clayton gave me his grandmother's ring, asked me to marry him, and I said yes. Not because he'd saved me, but because he'd seen me. Our wedding wasn't fancy, but it was honest. Folks from all over came, some curious, some just hungry for free cake. Preacher Morrison, who'd once doubted me, performed the ceremony as an apology. Pete walked me down the aisle, and when Clayton slipped that ring on my finger, I knew I'd finally come home. A year passed, and the one-room schoolhouse on Ridge Ranch filled with children, some riding miles to get there, others trudging through morning frost, but all of them eager to learn. Sometimes I'd look up from my lessons, hand resting on my growing belly, and see Clayton fixing the roof or hauling a new desk inside, and think, this, right here, is why you keep fighting. For a place at the table, for a voice in the story, for the chance to become more than what's been done to you. You want a happy ending? Maybe this is it. A classroom full of laughter, a husband who believes in me, a child on the way, and a prairie that stretches as far as hope. But the truth is, there's no such thing as endings. There's only the next day, the next lesson, the next choice to trust, to build, to forgive. So tell me, if it were you, would you have run from your past or stood and faced it, risked everything for the hope of something better? Let me know in the comments, because stories like this, they're not just mine. They're all of ours, and they're not finished yet.